In the Pits is partnered with 71 Designs, owned and operated by veteran Wade Martin, and partnered with fellow Texas brand Compete. 71 Designs can take your ideas for soft goods, merchandise, and casual wear and make them a reality. Message 71 Designs on Facebook or Instagram to get started today. In the Pits is partnered with Pod Runners Union. Follow Pod Runners Union on Instagram to find strength in union and celebrate our sports pit crew. Send in photos to represent your union local and be featured. Stealing pods for undeserving teams. It's a living. In the Pits is partnered with YI Paintball. Paintball, there's nothing like it. On the field or off, it's not just a sport, it's a community. The people, our people, come from all over with vastly different lives during the week. But come time for paintball, we're one community with a lot of stories about why. Follow YI Paintball on Instagram and meet the members of the paintball community. Learn about how they started, what their journey has been, and their ultimate why. Why paintball? What's your why? In the Pits is partnered with Hydra. Designed by players for players, you can outfit yourself in Hydra gear from head to toe. Have confidence that when you make a purchase from Hydra, you are purchasing a well-tested and well-thought-out product, trusted by several top teams, including first-place semi-pro team, PaintballFit.com. I personally recommend their Hydra Black knee pads. Purchases over $100 receive free shipping. Head to hydra.fit to browse their selection and discover the Hydra mentality. In the Pits is partnered with XTPL Events. The Extreme Tournament Paintball League is a series put on by the Lukow family of Paintball Fit fame that gives the opportunity for players to learn and grow together as a team. 3-man, Challengers and Champions X-Ball, Draft Mech X-Ball, and even Youth 3v3. There's something for everyone at XTPL. Not to mention prize tosses, raffles, and the infamous paintball munching contest. Events happen throughout the year, and the prizes never disappoint. Sign up for an XTPL event today on PB Leagues. In the Pits is partnered with BEM Wraps. Behind every mask is a unique and creative player. Tap into it when you order your next custom headpiece. Their Build-A-Band lets you communicate with them one-on-one to make your order just the way you want, all the way down to the color of the stitch. Check out their Instagram at BEMWraps for drops and build videos of them working on orders. They offer very competitive pricing, so reach out today to get started on your own one-of-a-kind headpiece. In the Pits is partnered with Mariachi Aguilas de Oro. Based in Austin and servicing the surrounding areas, these Golden Eagles will bring life to any event you are having, from birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, corporate events, or even a simple performance to enjoy. Guillermo Padilla, one of their trumpet players, is also a member of the Texas paintball scene. Visit them on Facebook and Instagram to check out some of their past performances, or give them a call to book them for your event today. In the Pits is partnered with Skull Monkeys Paintball. Equip, engage, excel. In the Pits is partnered with Compete. Compete is a Texas-based brand by Jell Stewart of professional team AC Diesel that provides custom jerseys, pants, headbands, straps, tech shirts, and any other soft goods to help individuals and teams compete at the highest level. Support Texas Paintball and message Compete on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits Podcast for 10% off your entire order. In the Pits is partnered with Get Dat Shot. Get Dat Shot now offers first-in-line photo and video editing, 20% off Get Dat Shot merch, and 20% off prints to all teams that wear the Get Dat Shot logo on their jersey. Message GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram to become a Get Dat Shot program team. In the Pits is partnered with Paintball Kumite. Paintball Kumite is a program designed by Colt Roberts of professional team San Antonio X Factor to take paintball players of all ages, experience levels, and skill groups and mold them into champions. The program breaks the game down into small, easy-to-learn sessions designed to help you master the fundamentals so that you can elevate your game. Newcomers to the program get a free 1-hour introductory class when mentioning In the Pits. To sign up for a class, message at Paintball Kumite on Instagram. Welcome, everybody, to episode 82 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week, we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and a new special guest. I'm Christian Dallas Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans, and this episode we are going in the pits with Mike Bianca, coach for pro team New Orleans Hurricanes and co-host of Go Sports The Coaches Show. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well. And wow, you could have been in radio.
Yeah,
Well done.
thank you. Appreciate it. Well, I've had 82 weeks to practice now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on the show. I know there was a little bit of a fiasco with me saying the wrong calendar date on you, but thanks for being flexible and all that.
No worries, man. Happy to help.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. This first question is brought to us by XTPL Events. So, for those listening that maybe don't know about you, how long have you been involved in the tournament paintball scene?
Tournament paintball. Yeah. I started tournament paintball probably around 97, 98. So I guess that's what, 26 years or so. I started playing at a little local field um, in the woods in backwoods Mississippi. I remember when I went and watched my first hyperball match. I remember thinking that it didn't take any skill. The old accuracy by volume belief. When I finally started playing speedball, as we called it then, I will tell you, my eyes were open. So, you start the startup costs for legitimate setups back then were a lot like today, right? They're significant. Uh, None of the good teams in the area would pick me up because I didn't own an autocock or an automag or an angel. The funny thing is, though, my teammates and I were beating these teams at these local events with our tipmans. Uh, I remember one day I told my friends on one of the big teams in that area that team was called Fear Factory, by the way. I got a call as soon as I told them I was buying an autococker. I got a call by the team to join, which I found very funny. But anyway, that's kind of what went on. So I guess yeah, since 97, 98.
It's crazy that even nowadays, like equipment is very, it's gotten so good across the board that it's not nearly as much of a factor as far as a team success rate.
100% agree. Yep. You know, that's what it takes. Most of the markers, even these entry level markers, can do what the others do. Can it shoot 10.5, right? Can it not chop paint? You're good.
Yep, just as long as they're reliable. That seems to be the only thing nowadays. That and I guess there's a trend with like the newer markers, like the CS3 or the Field One Force, like more so focused on being able to handle brittle paint, which I totally understand
Right.
on the NXL side of things. But for local events or weekend play, it's just as long as it works and you remember to change your batteries and clean out your bolts and all that, you're probably good to go.
Yep. 100%. Take care of your equipment, it'll take care of you.
Absolutely. So, what are some of the teams that you've played for over the years?
Well, probably not many that anyone's familiar with, but I some like the first tournament team I ever played for was called Poison Oak, but and then Sonic Death Monkeys. Um, those were both like three-man teams that were, pretty successful in the local and regional area. But then I got onto Fear Factory, started playing more regionally, and um, played for the often misunderstood team Godspeed uh, in MPPL Super 7 in the early 2000s. Played for PSP X Ball team Red Energy. Then, of course, Birmingham Prime. Played for Royalty. So those are the teams. Perhaps, yeah, the teams some people may remember: Red Energy, Prime, Royalty. Again, the others were simple, like local and regional. But I made some great friends on those teams, and I still have them today. So
I wonder if there's any, if you had a Venn diagram between local paintball team names and like small garage band names, if what the the Venn diagram looks like there, because Poison Oak is that's a good one right there.
yeah, well, being a tournament team that came out of the woods and then started playing hyperball and then airball, it seemed appropriate. But back we had everything. Everything was 32 degrees. You know, That's shout out to my old school ballers. So,
Shout out. All right. So this question is brought to us by Skull Monkeys Paintball, who's actually a local team up in the New York area. So tell us about how you first got into paintball.
all right. Let's see. I played my first game of paintball again in the backwoods of Mississippi in 1993. Oh wow, 30 years ago. So the university I was going to had a paintball club, and I lived in a house just off campus with three other roommates. Two of those roommates were part of this paintball club. I was getting to know people. It was my first year and everything. So they invited me out, and we would go play outlaw paintball out in the woods with this professor who had his own tanks and everything, and he'd fill everybody up. And we didn't have chronos. I'll never forget that one. I have a nice hole scar from that first day, but you know, we do that pretty regularly, and I'll tell you that adrenaline rush that you get being out there in the first time, and it's like buck fever, right? If anyone knows what that is, um, but it was a different time. A case of gator ball is what we used to shoot, which was like a really, I mean, we're talking black shell. It was a black shell with this bright green fill, but it would cost you like $80 to $100 at a pawn shop back then. But it was all woods ball to begin with. I don't know. The adrenaline of being crafty in the woods will always be a favorite feeling of mine. But yeah, I first played in '93, and that's how I got into it. I'm not one of those birthday party people. I came to it late. I was in my 20s.
Well, I was when I first got into tournament paintball, I was also a product of the NCPA because I first started with the Texas Longhorns playing that, and it was very different for me because before that I was all in like music, orchestra, performing arts, all of that, and then I get to college still doing all of that. My major was vocal music, and was had a weird blend of doing that and then also playing paintball for the university. So
That's awesome. Hook 'em horns. It's funny. I was a musician in college. Well, I was a musician in college, and I played in local bands and made a little extra money doing that. So pretty cool.
it's a unique experience for anybody who's never gotten into playing an instrument. It's definitely fun. It's uniquely rewarding as well.
Yeah, it teaches you discipline too. So
Absolutely. So this question is brought to us by Podrunners Union. So, what are some things that have changed within either the Texas scene or just the general paintball scene overall, for better or for worse, over the time that you've been involved in it?
well, first of all, Podrunners Union, is that cool Instagram page that I just crack up with the memes?
Yep.
Okay, cool beans, man.
Shout
Shout
out to
out to
you,
those guys.
Sasha.
Sasha, that's right. I knew it. Okay,
hmm
shout out to Sasha. Um, well, I can't talk too much about paintball in Texas at that time or over the year, but well, I can tell you this. I think many would agree that Texas has become a significant purveyor of paintball talent. Um, it used to be California or the West Coast area. Now you have Diesel, Heat, X Factor, Notorious, PB Fit. That's 5 of 20 professional teams that are Texas based. So a quarter of the professional team, 25% of the MLPB NXL professional teams are from Texas. If that doesn't tell you that Texas has become a breeding ground of paintball talent over the last several years, I don't know what does. So that's what I would say. I would say that Texas has become, what's the word they use? A mecca of paintball these days.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about it just recently, right after Fit got promoted. I think they've overtaken California in the number of professional teams in the league. As far
That
as I
that would
can think off the top of my head, we've got from San Diego, we've got Aftermath and Dynasty. From LA, you've got the Ironman and you've got Infamous. And outside of that, I mean, Sacramento DMG isn't a team anymore, so it's just those four. All right, y'all. Sorry about that. We are back. So I think what we were saying was that Texas has kind of evolved to be the current mecca, and like from my most recent count, Texas overtook California in the number of teams in the NXL because I think they only California since Sacramento DMG left, they only have 4 teams now. They've got Aftermath, Dynasty,
Dynasty.
the Ironmen, and Infamous.
And technically, even though it's LA, Infamous really is based out of the more of the Midwest, I think. If I may be wrong, but yeah, I think you're right. So Texas, I mean, when you've got the, it's just incredible what Texas has been able to do, and it doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yep, and on
BKI.
absolutely. And on top of that, like I think 3 of the last 4 teams that have gotten promoted from semi-pro have been from Texas. Because you start out with Diesel winning in 2019. 2020, there wasn't a team. 2021 was you guys. And then 2022 is Notorious. And then this past year was Fit.
Was Fit. Yep.
And
last 3 out of 4, 75%.
And even you guys have some history in the USXBL, so Texas can kind of claim you there.
We'll take it, man. I love being honorary Texan. You guys can be honorary Cajuns.
We'll take that. Yeah. I mean, I know that my team had a lot of fun. What was it? I guess 2 years ago now when Bunkerfest held their Mardi Gras event. And we definitely had a blast coming down.
I tell you, that was an incredible, that whole Bunkerfest thing and what they're doing with all of that is really awesome. I find that very cool. So
absolutely. Yeah. We're big fans of Chris Rangel and everything that he's been doing.
Yeah.
So this question is brought to us by Bemraps. So as a player, you've played at a high level for many years. However, as far as whenever I was doing my research on your PB Leagues profile, you've also been coaching at a high level dating back like over 10 years now with Division II team Prime. So what was it that got you into the coaching side of the game?
Toxic masculinity? No. I think age had a lot to do with it, but not because I had gotten old. Yeah, I guess we have to go back to about 2006 to really study that. I opened a tournament field in 2006 with a good friend, again in Mississippi. And you and I were talking earlier before the show, and I was involved in martial arts, and I began trying to incorporate a lot of philosophy and mechanics from that, training into the game. I used that time to really, as a field owner, to really get into biomechanics, etc. When you own a tournament field in rural Mississippi, not every weekend is full with players, so you have opportunities to train and drill and do a lot of different things. But I really got into drills, and as I was working with teams, and I had a team, it was called Legends Paintball. Not everybody wanted to do drills, right? I had built up a small reputation locally and regionally for being a decent player, but again, I was really pushing the drills a lot, and no one really wanted to do them. And around that time, this DVD came out called Dynasty Dissected. And lo and behold, a lot of the stuff that this incredibly talented young team was doing, this old man was doing at this local nowhere field. And anyway, I enjoy learning, but during that time, I found a love for teaching. So I started reading more. I don't remember who said it, but I think it still rings true today. And that's when one teaches, two learn. So, Albert Einstein, like Albert Einstein said, I never teach. I simply provide conditions in which my students can learn. And I thought that really opened my mind to a lot of different perspectives and concepts. And I love that. So that's the sort of position I adopted back then. And I have a degree in communications, and I think that really helped in with me learning how to deliver instruction. But being able to put things in terms everyone can understand, I think, is really key. But to answer your question, I tried the player coach thing and it just wasn't efficient. Um, I knew I could still play, but there was an allure to teaching and watching others grow that made me make the transition, I guess. Seeing that light bulb go off in players' heads and seeing them go out there and perform to their full potential was pretty gratifying. So yeah, I would that does that answer your question? I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I totally understand all of those feelings.
Yeah.
So, and this question is brought to us by Mariachi Aguilas de Oro. So, when was it that you decided to transition fully away from the player role, like full time into coaching, and why?
Hmm. Okay, so there were three things that happened that made me decide to transition fully into coaching. First was meeting Shane Pastana, who had watched me as a player coach over at Prime, and he was the first guy to see or tell me that I was good on that front. Right? He really built me up. He really supported me, gave me a confidence to believe in what I was doing. Second thing would have been when I left Birmingham Prime the first time in 2016. I started writing a blog at my wife's behest, right? She said I needed to get my thoughts and concepts down on paper. And so I started a small blog called Zen and the Art of Paintball. And I remember anticipating getting pretty roasted or hosed online, but surprisingly, I didn't, at least not publicly. I started doing a few local and regional clinics and built up again, a small reputation for hosting a good learning experience. That's how I describe that. Um, and I ended up getting contacted by a D2 team. It was a rebirth of the CEP brand team name, who weren't doing very well in the division at the time, and they wanted me to coach them for an event, just a single one-off. And of course, I said, well, if I'm going to do that, I want to be there for your practices prior, right? So we need to practice as a team and get used to each other before we go. And they hadn't done any better than 1-3, I think, at the first two national events at that time. And they thought I could help. And what's funny is I didn't think I could, but it was my wife who said that I'm always talking about the process and culture and this element and that element. And she said, "What better team to prove it with?" So I agreed, and they made Sunday, taking ninth at the event. And they asked me back for cup, and then they took fourth. Finally, they asked me back for the next season. They wanted me to coach the whole season, and they won the division. So that kind of proved to me that, hey, maybe there is something to what I'm thinking, right? Finally, the third thing, and this predates the others actually, was someone told me I wasn't very good at it. So that just pushed me. And I can be petty like that. So so that's kind of what happened. So I would say that probably around I had always been that player coach for several years, from about 2010 to 2015 or so. And and then all those things happened, and I just decided, okay, it's time to refocus and focus on others, right? And that's just kind of what drew me. I believe that in order to be a good coach, you have to have a servant's attitude. And I was kind of at that place in my life. At the Prime program had 100 players come through it, right, in all divisions, and I got to be a part of over 100 different people's you know paintball journey, and that's pretty cool. And I'm still friends with probably 90% of those guys. So yeah, I guess that's when I realized that, hey, maybe there's ways to use paintball as a way to not only help others, but maybe help me grow too, because I learn every day. I'm learning right now.
One thing I find interesting is that, especially in the lower division, and maybe it's just less crucial, the coaching role in the lower divisions, but from everyone that I've talked to that is seriously into the coaching role, most of the consensus is that it's not viable to be a player coach or to have a team run by a player coach. But then at the same time, so many teams do it. And I'm curious if like why you think that is. Do you think it's just that those individuals still have a strong desire to play, or do you think it's just a lack of knowledge or respect for the coaching role, or what are your thoughts as far as that goes?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Some instances, it's out of necessity, right? Some instances, I think it's like you said, they still want to play, right? Third, there might be egos involved. I can coach and play at the same time. Watch me go. I'm Johnny Badass, right? Um, but maybe it's. I don't mean this as a harsh word, but it's an ignorance of what that role really entails if you want to see success consistently. Um, I'm sure there are teams out there that are proving me wrong right now that have player coaches that are doing very well and succeeding. And that is a sign of an incredible multitasker, right? An incredibly three-dimensional, maybe even fourth dimensional thinker. Um, I don't see them in the higher divisions usually. But yeah, I think it can be a lot of different reasons, right? Not, paintball is such a niche sport and resources can be so scarce that sometimes you get backed into those corners. And a lot of times people will look to that guy and say, hey man, lead, right? And some guys are those natural alphas. They want to step up and say, I'll lead, right? I'll do it. So I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. I mean, it would be a fascinating study in psychology. So
Do you know, I mean, I know you just said there's not very many teams, if any, in the upper divisions that are player coaching, but do you know of any successful examples off the top of your head?
well, I would like to think Birmingham Prime was good at it, but we were also kind of like a cabal.
Mm.
So there was never one guy necessarily in charge. Um, but of course Birmingham Prime doesn't exist anymore. So um, not right off the top of my head. I mean, look at some of the successful D2 teams, Golden Misfits, Wrecking Crew, two great programs, right? Coaches. And now they're both semi-pro. That's going to be exciting to watch. Um, I look at a lot of these teams, and I just almost everyone that I'm familiar with that's been doing well does have a dedicated coach of some sort. So in some capacity. Um, so no, I don't know any off the top of my head. That's a great question though. I'm going to go research that. I'm going to go look that up.
Yeah, it's
See if I can find any.
and I know I was talking, I can't remember who exactly brought the idea up. It might have been on a previous episode of Ryan Greenspan's show, but I think there
Mhm.
was a proposal that, or maybe just an idea that was floating around, that what if PB leagues added a slot on their roster, so you go and sign up your players, you also have the staff selector, but what if you had a unique role where you could put one person in as the coach, and that would be tracked from event to event, so that you can see who, um, like, give proper credit to the coaches that are actually fulfilling that role out there. And I'm curious if that would, or what that would do to kind of bring life into the role in at that lower level.
Yeah, kind of legitimize it a little bit, emphasize the importance of such a role. That's kind of a neat idea. That's a good concept. I like that idea. It's interesting. Coaches, we get a lot of credit. Um, it like for instance the live stream on Go Sports. What a great call by Ryan Gray, or what a great call by Ryan Brand, or any of the other Ryans. Such a paintball name. Um, and a lot of times, yeah, a lot of that is the coach, but 75% to maybe 90% of the time, that's a player making a good read and doing what he needs to do, right? So, as Ryan and I like to say, right, coaches plan and players execute. So I do think that's a great concept. I mean, you could track win ratios, all that sort of thing. It'd be interesting. There's so many different things that statistics. This is the new hot topic right now, right? Is statistics. And wouldn't it be great if we could have such an accurate thing as statistics in paintball? It's going to be difficult, but it's doable. And yeah, I think that would. I think you do that, you're going to start seeing people looking at, because that's really what the coaches show. is hoping to build. We're trying to create more coaches.
Well, I'm also a big fan of getting more information, more data into paintball, just to give it a little bit more legitimacy in the eyes of everybody and potential outside observers. Would be cool to keep stats on those and see like, oh, this person is actually like even something as simple as like an individual player's win-loss ratio every time they step onto the
Mhm.
field. That would be so basic to execute, but provide such a huge storyline.
That's right. That one would be absolutely easy to track. So there's a lot of low hanging fruit that we could easily get a hold of that may not be as exciting as some of those kill ratios or what have you, right? But definitely some things we could leverage there. And I'm with you. I think the more data we get, the better. And anytime you start doing that, stats really do legitimize things. They really do.
Absolutely. And looks like in the chat here we've got JC Lamon of Uno's Jerky. He's saying hello. I'm
Hello.
sure. I know that his jerky has made it its way over to
Mhm.
LA Extreme. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to try any of it, but I definitely recommend.
Absolutely, I have. I got turned on to it by my friends of not only my friend Drew Bankston, owner of LA Extreme Paintball, but my boys at I hate paintball .net. And it's good stuff. Good man, good stuff. So
All right, yeah. Shout out to you, JC. So this question is brought to us by Paintball Kumite, which is Colt Roberts' training regimen. So starting at World Cup, you've hosted the coaches show along with Ryan Gray. So tell
mhm,
us more about the mission behind the show.
gladly. Yeah, so Ryan and I met and became friends in 2021. Uh we had scrimmaged, he had brought Notorious out there and we'd scrimmaged and liked the way each other approached not only the game, but the reasoning and philosophy behind each other's approach. And, by the way, Texas should be very proud to claim Ryan as part of that talent we were talking about earlier. Besides his work with X Factor, Notorious, and soon to be Diesel, you got to look back at him as a player from the Texas Storm days. Uh, the man is smart and a solid leader. So he and I have very different approaches to things, but the end game, or rather the end goal, rather, is always the same. So both our teams got a lot of benefit from scrimmaging each other, and we had a tremendous time bouncing ideas and concepts off each other. In between points, or we'd have these practices where Ryan and I would talk about the role we both had as coaches and how there really wasn't anything out there for coaches or coaching in paintball. We felt there was a hole, right, for guidance or content around that specific topic. And we started scheming about how neat it would be to start a podcast. And to be honest, I didn't really see it coming to fruition. Uh, how many times I've talked about wouldn't it be cool if, but nothing ever comes of it. Right? I've done that 100 times with 100 different people. Great ideas, nothing ever comes of it. Anyway, Ryan can be quite convincing, and he enlisted the aid of some other influential personalities to get me on board. And needless to say, it worked out, and here we are. But the goal is to provide content for coaches and players. Create a place where people can go for examples and ideas. As soon as really, we hope to start providing more analytical aspects to the show. I think NFL's game day, whatever, something like that. Uh, but yeah, that's the whole goal is to create content for that missing link. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit a YouTube channel from on players showing you how to snap shoot or how to do this or how to do that. But how many do you actually have of a paintball coach giving you an inside look behind the scenes on, hey, these are the tactics we use. This is the strategic thinking. This is the critical thinking we do. This is my process. These are my techniques. This is how I do statistics. The craziest thing ever, right? What the one that blows people's minds is when I think SK was on our second show. And he says, people want to know how I do this and that. And I said, okay, yeah, here's how. And they're like, whoa, I didn't realize. He goes, yeah, just ask. So I think you're starting to see a transition now where everyone kept things, close to the chest. But now you're starting to see it come out. And I think the reason why you're starting to see it come out is because it pushes everyone to be better. And I think that's important. I does that make sense?
Oh yeah. And I
Okay.
know um whenever the Texas Titans first started as an organization back at the start of 2021, our very first event, we were very, very fortunate to have Ryan Brand coaching all three of our divisional lines at that first USXPL that year. I think as a player, my division was playing on Sunday, so I was there on Saturday helping out our other divisional lines. And I just said to myself, you know what? If I'm going to get the most out of this, I'm just going to shadow Ryan Brand the whole day. And I think I've probably learned more just in that single day than I've had than over multiple years as a player. And there wasn't that many resources as someone trying to figure out
Mhm.
how to coach, and even something as basic as doing the heat map of the other team's
Mhm.
breakouts, that was an entirely new concept to me. And just that and a few of the other things that we picked up just from shadowing him kind of formed the foundation of where the Titans are today, is a very strong program in Texas.
Smart man, smart man. Shadowing Ryan Brand. What a great idea, right? And think about that. A lot of times when like I just did a clinic this past weekend, and just taking small little things like this, like the heat map, or you know, this is how we do this. Create this code. Here's a code. There's a one word code that means this much, right? That efficiency. That's going to lift your capability probably 30-40% in whatever division you are in. If you didn't already, if you weren't doing that stuff. So so smart for you. Great that Ryan's given back. I think that's fantastic. Ryan's such a smart cookie. Smart guy. I've enjoyed getting to know him.
Yep, and JC Lamone in the chat, he actually is also a member of the Texas Titans. He was on the team that year. He said he had the worst day of paintball during practice on uh, the day that Ryan came in to kind of help us prepare for that event, but he learned so much from that weekend.
See, but that's the thing. I have this thing I say a lot, right? We didn't lose, we learned, right? Um, that concept is basically, doesn't matter if you had a bad day of paintball, as long as the needle, right, as long as it's continuous improvement. So okay, we had a bad day of paintball, but we learned a tremendous amount. My goodness, man, move the needle. Doesn't matter if that needle moved 0.001%, as long as the needle's moving in the right direction. So good for you, man.
Absolutely. And this question is brought to us by Why I Paintball. So, episode 9 with Mike Jeffrey just published earlier this week. So, now that you've been
Yeah.
doing the show for 2 months, what are some things that you've learned about the content creation process?
Oh wow. I've learned that I don't know anything. Um, I've barely touched the surface. There's a lot to learn, but we're putting the time in to learn it. Content creation and growing the show, it's a pooch. But it's been quite the experience so far. Frankly, I consider myself lucky to even be involved. Truth be told, Ryan's the main driver and has put in a lot of work when it comes to that aspect. He's a machine and has a propensity for doggedness. The man's a logic-based animal, but yeah, it's a process, all right. And with anything, there's a learning curve, and there's probably a lot of very adept people out there right now saying it's so easy. I'm sure it is. When you have, 9 irons in the fire, you know, it takes a little time. I do not sit in front of a computer all day, so I kind of wish I did. There's my son tonight was showing me around Discord, and it's fascinating stuff, right? So, but I would say that content creation, keeping that hook, right? You were a musician, right? Finding that hook that makes people want to sing along, right? It's the finding the right mix that keep people wanting to listen and wanting to come back. It's not easy, but I thought, this coach show, this makes a lot of sense. I think that's one of the number one things, skill sets that's not being promoted or really studied. And that's that role of coach. And so if we can give a little bit back, I think that's the goal.
And I have listened to every episode, and it's refreshing to hear, especially at the top level, how things are being done in the different ways that everybody that you've had on tackle those challenges. And because I know for a while, my perception of it was, oh, these are former players who just have an innate feel of the game. Guys like Dave Baines, guys like Todd Adamson out there who have been around the game for such a long time, and they just have a feel for it. And
Yeah.
it gave me the impression of, oh, you can't be a coach unless you have years of experience in the pro division. And that was my perception on the role for a long time.
Well, right. That was your perception. And it's easy to understand why. I would say though that yeah, it is important to have a strategic and tactical understanding of the game, right? So obviously, I will say this: just because they were a phenomenal player does not mean they're going to be a good coach. It really is two different skill sets, right? So, but I mean, you've named some really good players. Dave Baines being one, right? A phenomenal player who transitioned well into the coaching role. Matter of fact, we're hoping to get him on the coaches show. So, real quick, I did want to ask you, how about a little creative feedback? Is there anything you would change about the coaches show right now?
Um,
Yeah, I can take it. Come on, hit me.
I mean, right now, I think getting all of these names is great to help kind of drive the awareness of the show. But after you've kind of established your viewer base, I would love to see more topics kind of being like having episodes more focused on topics rather than individuals. Maybe things like, hey, how is it different coaching an upper divisional team versus a new Division 5 team? What are some things that you have to do differently between the two? That would be, I think, an excellent resource.
That is a fantastic idea. As a matter of fact, something I want to do is I want to bring in some divisional coaches. I want to bring in coaches from D2, D1, maybe D3, D4, D5. Bring them in and ask them some questions, right? Say, so, what do you think? It would be great to do something like that. I also want to do something, and maybe I'm having delusions of grandeur. I don't know, but I would love to. Ryan and I have talked about studying specific matches, putting them up on the screen, and then going through it and analyzing, explaining to you why we think this player did this, why we think this coach played this line, why we think this coach called this play. Why they decided to concede that point. Clock management. Clock management is something that a lot of coaches don't talk about, or maybe even lower divisional player coaches are familiar with. So there's so much stuff out there. You spot on. Thank you for the feedback. I greatly appreciate it. It just makes me realize just how much more there is we could be doing.
Oh yeah, there's there's scope creep is what I've heard it referred to as, but
That's a good term.
there's a lot of potential there.
I like to think so.
So this kind of speaking on all of that, if you had to give one piece of advice for a player stepping into the coaching role for the first time, what would it be?
Just one thing?
Uh,
Oof.
or or if you
I
want to
could
give a
probably
top
list 10.
three, or yeah.
um, I'd say learn your players. Um, you should coach how they learn. They shouldn't have to learn how you coach. I say that all the time, by the way. So if I sound like a broken record, it's because it's true. Not every player responds to the same stimuli. Okay. It's vitally important you know how to communicate with each and every player, right? Um, we'll call them emotional displays, may work for one player while it probably throws another one completely on tilt. So learn what motivates them, learn their strengths, weaknesses. Don't worry, Ryan, I won't go into my SWOT analysis. Uh, that'll lead to better communication and understanding, right? So I mean, I could keep going. Like learn your players. I mentioned communication. You better know the game. We talked about that, right? You better know the game tactically, strategically. You better know the why. I've said this for years now. I think the most important question in paintball is why. Why are we going to this bunker? Why am I shooting this way? Why am I paying attention to the stack? Right? Um, you better be a good listener. You better be a good learner too. You have to be open to learning new things and ideas, right? You got to have thick skin. You got to be open to criticism too. Criticism needs to work both ways. Um, you got to be a good motivator. Uh, you know what? Be an inspiration, right? And you can be an inspiration by being confident, right? Exuding confidence. Um, but in order to exude confidence, you have to have a solid knowledge base. So now we're back to knowing the game, right? You got to be able to instill discipline. But probably one of the things I believe the most in, and I've tried to do for the last 10, 12 years, lead by example. Don't tell anyone to be on time and show up late. You better be as committed or more committed than they are. You must want it every bit as much as they do, right? You got to believe, baby, because if you don't, they'll see it, they'll see through it, and then now you got problems. So, okay, I'll shut up now.
Well, I mean, I love how the biggest things there were you have to know the game and you have to lead by example. Like you have to be doing the things. You have to be the best person there because I know there's the popular phrase, as much as I disagree with it, the those who can do and those who can't teach.
Right.
But I think that those that teach need to be masters at their craft before they can be able to like bestow that information on their students.
People who say those who can't, actually that's based off an Aristotle quote, right? And what he basically said was those who know do, those who understand teach. So I don't think you have to be the best, right? Because I am certainly not the best paintball player, right? But as a critical thinker, I've always talked about how my role as a coach is to put my players with their strengths and weaknesses, put them in the best position to succeed. So being able to remove distractions and let them focus on being the player they can be, um, that's a role of a coach, right? Remove obstacles, remove distraction, let them focus on being the best player they can be. And one of the ways I can do that is by asking questions, putting them, pressure testing. I'm a huge proponent of pressure testing. And that probably comes from the martial arts aspect, right? But let's see if something works. Let's hit it. you know. So but yeah, that's kind of my stance on that. But yeah, I think you yes, you have to understand and you have to be able to communicate and there has to be that trust. There has to be some form of bond, right? Whether it's that mentorship or that harsh taskmaster, doesn't matter. However you want to define it, there has to be some form of bond, and that bond has to involve a trust. And if you can't build that trust and instill that trust in your players, you're gonna have problems. So I hope that helped.
I love it, and I hope that anybody who's listening is taking notes. So this question is brought to us by FU Athletics. So throughout your entire career, do you have a single favorite moment so far?
Zizek asked me that question. Good question. I like that question. I have two. I have two now. Uh, Number one, winning World Cup with the Canes will always be one of the most incredible experiences of my paintball career. Right? Uh, it was pretty emotional. I'm not an emotional guy, but I think I had like 16 second place finishes nationwide. In the national events. Um, several thirds, several fourths, and finally to win a national event and for that final, for that national event first win to be a World Cup. That's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. Especially since it was with this crew, the Canes. Love those guys. They're my boys. Uh, Next to that would be going into Sunday as the first place seed and the only undefeated team in the prelims at Chicago our rookie year. I don't think anyone saw that coming. And if you go back and you watch our match against the Russians, that made me so proud of the guys. That's when I knew that we were on the same wavelength. Right. That was grit. Cool, calm, collected in the pits, knowing we weren't out of the match, even though, and we never get, it was 4-0 with like 8 or 9 minutes left. And I'm like, hey, we quit getting penalties. We're going to win this match. And so let's stick to the game plan. And, here we go. Let's impose our will. Let's execute the game plan. Players, coaches, plan, players execute. So that a close third would be beating Heat in overtime at the Mid Atlantic event last year with our super secret play. So those would be my three memories. By the way, I love the Heat guys. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with Chad recently, recently, and I really appreciate that team. So cool team, a Texas team. So
Absolutely. All right, so this next question is brought to us by 71 Designs. So let's talk about your current team that you coach, the New Orleans Hurricanes. So you guys earned the pro spot in 2021, and pretty much immediately you were a team expected to appear on Sunday. So how did you come to join the organization?
I'm not sure if we were expected to. I mean, no one knew what we were bringing, right? So everyone gets that first event. And I honestly, that with the second event where we made our first Sunday, giving a blind layout like that, I felt was way in our advantage. We were that team. I remember Maddie made a comment. He goes, "There were teams out here for 5 hours." Yeah, we were one of them. So, you know, but yeah, to your point, I actually coached and played with a few of the Hurricane players back in the Prime days. A lot of people don't know that. Aaron Pate, Jacob Seawright were both members of Prime at one time. I had also done a clinic as Zen in the Art of Paintball for the Canes right before they won Chicago in D2, actually. Matter of fact, they knocked Prime out in the quarters. I had played against Drew Bell. We ran in a lot of the same circles, chewed a lot of the same dirt. So there was that relationship. So I was very familiar with the program. Um, but how I ended up with the Hurricanes, after I coached CEP to a divisional title in 2019, the Hurricanes were actually coming off, I believe, a third place finish at the time in semi-pro. They were always competitive, and they felt the one thing that was missing was an experienced coach. I remember when, so Captain Stuart Ridgel gave me a call and we discussed the culture and expectation. I remember telling him, I said, I don't think you guys need me. I think you guys are right there. I think you just need to, you know, but we did agree. I said, you know what, let me come down and give it a look, and, we'll go through a practice and we'll meet and we'll hang out and we'll do all this stuff. And of course, not from a clinic perspective, but from okay, if I'm going to coach, let me really get to know the guys and let's go through a practice together. And so I came down for a weekend to work with them, and it just clicked, man. It was we were all on the same page, and we're after the first day we were ribbing each other pretty good, and in a real comfortable way. So that would have been, I guess that would have been the beginning of like January or February of 2020. And the rest is history. Yeah. By the way, quick shout out to Stu and his lovely wife, Jessica. They are expecting twin boys any day now. So love you guys. Can't wait to meet the twins. So
Oh, congratulations.
yeah, it's a big deal, man. It's the first time. I'm excited for him.
And that's wonderful. So the Hurricanes, whenever they came into the league, their style was one that they didn't look like a rookie team when they first came in. They had a mature and disciplined style on the field, and they were immediately respected for it. So what do you attribute kind of that hot start and that better than expected start towards?
Well, you said it. Discipline, right? Managing expectations, goal setting, just plain old hard work. So we knew what we were getting into when we decided to take the spot. We understood the mountain that was in front of us. I believe that adversity is a guideline. It's not a stop sign. I read that somewhere, but it stuck with me. See an obstacle, recognize it, figure it out, get around it, over it, under it, through it, whatever you got to do. But don't roll over and die, and either stand there and announce I am, or get out of the way. And I think we sat there and we were realistic about things. So we had a realistic expectation. We understood where our level was. And so we decided, instead of trying to be something, we were like, we're going to be the Hurricanes. We're gonna take our system and we're gonna apply it at the pro level and see what it gets us. And it worked. So I'm proud of that, by the way. I'm very proud of that.
As you should be. I mean, that's I think even teams that have come into the league after you guys were, which I guess would just be notorious at this point because we haven't seen too much to fit, but like they don't play the same style. I don't think Diesel did either when they first came into the league. And just the fact that you were like, you know what, we're gonna do our thing and we're just gonna stay disciplined. That's not being able to get over the jitters like that as a rookie team is something that very few have been able to achieve.
Right. Well, yeah. We still had the jitters, right? But we weren't going to let them affect the game. I think because ultimately, right, we're all adults. I have an older team. I think our average age is 34, 35. So I do have an older team. So it's interesting because we've been described as a disciplined team, and I love that, and that makes me. I made a joke the other day. I said we're the wish list form of damage, but in all reality, I don't think we have any particular style. We play the field the way we think it needs to be played based off our strengths. And sometimes that we're going to see the field as, hey, we need to be aggressive here, and we can be aggressive, right? We can play aggressively. But at the same time, though, zone control is very key, and understanding. I like to reverse engineer layouts, right? A lot of people want to find this, that, and the other. One of the things I like to do is say, okay, how do I lock it? Now, how do I attack from that? Right? It's a lot like I just had this conversation the other night. It's matter of fact, if you get a chance, listen to the next coaches show with Shallow Almeida, where we talk about the martial arts aspect of it and how we applied that to paintball as a whole. And you see that in the Hurricanes style. And that is, when my opponent expands, I contract. When my opponent contracts, I expand. So I want to, it's a mitigating risk approach, right? So Bruce Lee used to talk about it. Man, I'm giving it all away that we're talking about on the coaches show this Tuesday, but it's a Bruce Lee approach, right? In order for you to move to me, like to hurt me as a physical person, let's say you want to punch me, you want to kick me, you want to hit me with something. In order for you to move to, hurt me, you have to move to me, which offers me an opportunity to intercept you or to meet you. And so the beauty of that is, if I'm able to, if you, for instance, like you risk a body, okay, I mitigate the risk, you risk a little bit. Well, that little bit of risk doesn't pay off for you. That's going to give me either a positioning advantage or a body advantage. Now I'm going to effectively counter, offensively counter, right? So there's that response, there's that counter punch, and that's how I've kind of always looked at the Canes, right? The paintball field is the street, and the paintball match is a street fight. And so we've got to use our environment, and we want to use our tools, right? We all have 2 arms and 2 legs. We're all going to fight. Well, they all have 5 guys with 3 guns. So, unless someone comes out there with 4 arms and 4 guns in each and 3 legs or whatever, we're going to play a lot alike. But now I've just got to figure out, right, how I want to counter you, or how I want to read you, or do I want to, basically impose my will on you and make you play my game. I'm getting a little off topic, but it's very it can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. It can be simple. So I'll shut up on that front.
Yeah,
I can babble sometimes, Christian. I can babble.
Oh, that's what I'm here for. I'm just here for the knowledge and the growth opportunity. But something I do hear a lot is especially from some higher level coaches where they'll get frustrated at their team and they'll call a huddle and they're like, "Hey, this game is easy. You guys are making this way more complicated than it needs to be." And just
Right.
there are a lot of distractions that could possibly happen during the game, and there's a lot of moving parts. But it's overall, if you stick to being disciplined and what's on paper, then it just seems like the game will kind of play itself out.
That's right. I mean, if you want to see the difference between um, doing your job and making it complicated, look at the Hurricanes Chicago, look at the Hurricanes World Cup. There. And really that's what it boils down to, right? And that's a great example of, fifth place to whatever it was. And I don't even want to, I've already moved it out of my head, but obviously I haven't. So that's the thing, right? That's the difference between discipline, levels of discipline and control. Fifth place to not doing very well. So
Right. And speaking of kind of other external factors that go on, so we know that throughout, especially throughout this offseason, that you've gone on record saying that the Hurricanes really don't have much, if any, budget to work with. So what's one thing
yeah,
that you guys do to maximize your time and budget that you do have?
organization. Yes, organization. So we'll set goals for each practice, for each drill, for each other. We hold each other accountable. The culture drives itself really. When you have a team culture that is about lifting each other up and pushing each other to be the best, to execute, drive your teammate to give 110%, then there's little that will stop you from seeing successes. You have to want it. You have to want to be there. um, you have to want to be at practice, and all of us want to be there, right? We're competitors, so it's that simple. It boils down to that. We want to be the best we can be, and we hope that our best is winning a tournament, or if our best is second or third or fourth. Okay, what do we have to do now to improve that? How do we move the needle? And that's the game. It's I used to make the comment that, okay, and when it comes down to a fight between the team that practiced and shot 100 cases versus the team that practiced and shot 50 cases, I'm going to choose the guy that shot 100 cases every time. I don't I don't necessarily believe that anymore, because I believe there is a quality to your practice, especially since, we've now consolidated normally what was 2 weekends of layout practice into one. So you have to get efficient. Right now, certainly, yes, there are teams who can afford to, the minute the layout drops Wednesday, they're out there practicing, and then they're practicing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then they'll go to the event and they'll even practice on Thursday. And so, yeah, they're seeing a whole lot more. So how do I combat that with guys who have day jobs that, we have to be efficient with our time? So not only efficient, but practical. So we have to get the biggest bang for our buck. So I like to try and consolidate things and create opportunities. So I hope that answered your question. I
Yeah,
always ask you that. Did that
absolutely.
answer your question? Because I have a tendency to babble.
Absolutely. So as far as if you don't mind me kind of trying to discover a few of your secrets here. So as far as when you say organization, do you mean things like as far as how the practices that you do have are structured, like maybe like the
Mhm.
minute by minute or the out, like the goals that you have, or what do you mean as far as like organization? Like if let's say you
Absolutely.
have a layout that drops, what are
Mhm.
like what's your hierarchy of things that you work on?
Okay, that's no, that's a great question. So because we obviously don't have a lot of the assets or capabilities that a lot of teams do, as soon as the layout drops, the team schedules a Zoom call. We already have a Zoom call scheduled for the layout drop. And the team gets on the Zoom call, all of us. We get on the Zoom call and we walk that field virtually together. And then we literally start with a reverse engineering process. And we have an agenda for that Zoom call so that we're efficient with our time, right? Because all of us have work the next day. Some of us have work that night. So we're very efficient with the agenda. And then what happens if we create these theories? So we come up with these theories. Coach takes theories, and maybe I'll, you know, uh, give some other people some homework assignments. And then so we take these series, come up with these concepts. We start testing we do what I call foundational training. In other words, basis training. When we get out there on the first morning we can with each other and we start looking at things and we start working on concepts that we think it's going to play this way. Let's test this theory and let's test this theory. Here's how we can control the zone. Here's how we can attack from this launch bunker. All of that sort of stuff happens on that Friday, which create new theories. And then on Saturday, we test those new theories that we've kind of studied and adapted on Friday evening. And then those theories get tested throughout the day with a slightly more adjustment. And then we get there Saturday night as a team. We develop more theories and concepts and we start to polish things. And then that Sunday, we start executing these as often as we can and we start narrowing things down. So I hope that's kind of a high level way of doing it, but that's the idea. That's the concept. Now, regarding practice, an off layout practice, we've got one this weekend with AC Diesel actually. And I've already got an agenda. So the agenda's set and it's literally hour to hour to hour, half hour by half hour with what we're doing and what the goal is. And there's always asterisks, which mean, okay, if we haven't met this goal or we haven't met this level of aptitude at this point, we keep going. Right. So because the point of an off layout practice is to shore up our weaknesses or strengthen our strengths. So that's kind of where we're at. I hope all of that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's refreshing to hear that how structured the practices are versus just, hey, let's go play points and hope
Right.
for the best.
Right. No, I think the teams that just play points, the concept there is, hey, if I can average 30 points a day, I'm going to get, on a weekend or whatever, I'm going to get, 60 to 90, points in. I will have seen several, scenarios. Well, after a couple of days, after a couple of points or what have you, or I'm seeing a certain way that, well, I want to create the scenario that I think we're going to see often. And I want to work those a lot. So, I try, that's my process. If I can't get my guys that much time on the field, well, then I'm going to create the opportunities to give them the looks that they need to see. So,
Right. Absolutely. So this question is brought to us by Hydra. And actually, real quick, I see in the chat that Dan Shelley's here. He says he's wearing his Coach's Show shirt as we speak.
that's that. Yeah, man. The Coach's Show shirt here, made by Maxed, by the way. Thank you, Charles, over at Maxed, and all those crew. Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dan, for tuning in. Thank you, Charles, for helping out in the Discord beforehand. Uh,
Yes, yeah. After he had to take a shot at the old man first, but no, I love that guy.
yeah, shout out to you, Charles.
Good human
So,
being.
this question is brought to us by Hydra. So, looking to the future, what can we expect this upcoming season for the Hurricanes? Are you guys going to be making any roster moves? Do you have any potential sponsor changes on the horizon? Like, what all do you have in store?
Okay, so no roster moves. I have the same 10 returning. It wasn't looking that way at the end of this season. Um, it looked like I was going to lose two anchors, two great players from the team. But after the World Cup performance, they both agreed, no, we're not going out like that. So one last hurrah. Um, we have probably the best sponsors in the world, so no need to change the existing sponsor. Oh, but we did add one. Uh, Myself and the team would like to thank our sponsors. They've been really good to us. So I want to shout out to Planet Eclipse, GI Sports Paint. If you're not shooting it, you're foolish. JT, Carbon, Walker and the crew. They've been so good to us. Gen X Global, one of the very incredibly supportive. Gosh, Transfuse, I Hate Paintball. The man himself, Drew Bankston, over at LA Extreme Paintball in Slidell, Louisiana. Um, Now, I don't want to announce the newest sponsor here yet, but I promise it is very cool and we are very excited about it. And I'm really looking forward to that one because it's going to be neat. I'm really looking forward to that one, but I'm going to let the team handle that one because it would not be cool for coach to throw that one out before it's time. But now I did want to add that we are working on building relationships with a lot of people. There was a lot of interest. I got a lot of phone calls from players. And of course, I've been keeping my eye on the pulse, right? I want to keep my eye on players that I'm interested in. I'm very analytical from that front. I like to understand that, well, okay, if I lose this player next season, or I have an injury or whatever, these are certain players I keep eyes on in certain roles, right? Ones, twos, threes. And so I look at things that will complement us, and not only complement our capabilities, but also who's going to fit in the culture, right? One thing that you are guaranteed uh, when you come and play for the Hurricanes, blood, sweat, tears, right? Well, maybe not the tears, but blood, sweat, hard work, right? If you're chasing a bag, this is not the program. We've already joked about, we have no budget, but other than that, yeah, no roster moves, but some of the best sponsors in the world, and looking forward to announcing one new one.
All right. Well, yeah, looking forward to the announcement. Hopefully coming out pretty soon. So,
Yeah.
for everybody that's tuning in live, first off, thank you for tuning in. I know that we're airing on a different day than normal, so we appreciate you watching. If you have any questions for Mike, go ahead, get them in the chat now. We're kind of getting toward the end of our show. So, Mike, this next question is one that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and it helps me kind of broaden my horizons and learn about anybody who is either up and coming or maybe flying under the radar that's out there. So this question is brought to us by Get Dat Shot. Message him GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram if you're needing media coverage this upcoming season. He's going to be at the full series for NXL as well as USXBL, and I think he's going to attend some other events in Texas as well. So, Mike, is there anybody in paintball, either teams, players, brands, or projects that have caught your attention lately? Who do you think deserves more recognition for what they're doing?
That's a good one. I'm certainly interested in seeing what Todd Adamson does with the newly reincarnated Chicago Aftershock. That's I'm really anxious to see how that happens. What his roster is going to be and what that first event goes like for them. I'm anxious to see what PV Fit and Blast Camp are going to bring to the division. Uh, as always, I'm fascinated by Dynasty Damage and Heat. you know, um, the new Iron Man roster will be fun to watch, I think. Honestly, I would say I really enjoy a lot of the paintball content we were talking about earlier about paint content. I've really enjoyed stuff where these guys who are kicking out these videos. Fava Photography made a video. God bless you and thank you to him and Planet Eclipse for that short documentary on the Canes. If you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube. It's called Force of Nature, and it's on the Planet Eclipse channel. But I love stuff like that. I love something that tells a story and makes me care. I think Maddie says that a lot, right? Make us care. And these guys who create these incredible landscapes with video of paintball. So I would say the content creators, right? Ronnie Dizon's doing some incredible stuff with his channel. You're doing incredible stuff here with this show. Anybody who takes the time and tries to put their heart into this sort of thing, I love that stuff. I love it all. I try to consume as much of it as I can. Enrique Photography, Verbal, all these guys, Paintball Nerd, they're all doing so many, such cool stuff. And I think there is a huge, huge need for it. We've got to tell better stories. Because that's what it is. The format's not broken. It's our messaging. It's our storytelling. And I think that's where we really need to work. So those are you guys out there who, content creators like yourself and everybody, and hopefully Ryan and I here soon, right? Um, let's keep going. Let's up the game. So that's the stuff I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to seeing what the MLPB does, right, to promote the league and tell the stories and get it out there. I'm really excited about the European. It seems Europe's really coming on now, so I'm really excited about that. Gosh, there's so much. But yeah, that I didn't mean to cheese out on you on that one, and cop out on that answer. But no one thing, no one player, no one product. I'm excited for all of it.
Yeah, there's been a huge growth in the number of individuals that are contributing content for paintball,
Yeah.
and from all over the place, and not just the guys who've been doing it a while or the big names. Like I listened to a lot of different individuals. Like there was One gentleman from England that I actually got to say hi to during World Cup. He stopped by the project booth and he said, "Wait a second, are you Christian Smith?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's a regular listener from the UK, and so I got to shake his hand. And he does his own show called the Banana Bus podcast over in the UK. I think he
Yeah.
recently had Clint Moore and a couple others on too.
Yes, yes. The Banana Bus. I'm very familiar with it. It's very cool stuff. So
Oh yeah. So shout out to Banana Bus. I think there's a couple others like Center 50. Let's see. From the Sideline, I listen to regularly. I try to do as much as I can with keeping up with all of the content that's out there, but it's just keeps growing and growing so quickly that
yeah.
I only have so many listening hours in the day, but I try to fit it in wherever I can.
Yeah, it's not easy. Tea and Biscuits, you had mentioned the Banana Bus, but Tea and Biscuits is an English one run by my friend Mark Dale Twiz. So, it's there's so much stuff out there. So, you know, I just it's incredible.
Yeah, and we're gonna kind of a sneak peek for a future episode, but we're gonna have several content creators and podcasters on. We're gonna do a roundtable next month. Still trying to finalize the date, but we're gonna have several podcasters on to talk. Just have a big ol' discussion on podcasting and content creating, and just hopefully being a resource for anyone who's looking to start their own shows.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. See, that's smart. That's the kind of thing that we need to start doing, right? Start having each other's backs. You know, it's so easy to to beat up on each other. We do that regularly between the nets. So everyone talks about growing the sport. Okay, what are you doing to grow the sport? What did Ryan say the other day? I love it. This is such a Texas thing to say, man. That's what I love about the
Mhm.
Texas people, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, you're using this. Why aren't you using your feet, right? You're talking about growing the sport. You're hashtagging growing the sport, but what are you doing? What are you doing to move it? Right? Are you getting out there? Are you moving your feet? And I just love that. I think that's a great perspective. So,
Yep. Ryan Gray is full of gems like that.
oh yeah. Well, there's several people in Texas that are you if you sit and spend the time and talk to them like Colt, you know. He's got some zingers out there. Ryan's another one. There's it's just I don't know. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Spirit animal. My spirit animals are in Texas
I love it.
because I love guns. So
All right. So
are you
that
allowed to say that or
oh yeah.
no? Okay, yeah, that's right. Texas show. We should be able to.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. So I think that just about does it. This final question that we have is from Compete, which is Jell Stewart's brand. Message him on
Mhm.
Facebook or Instagram. Mention In the Pits for 10% off of your order of soft goods. So, Mike, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last shout outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
No, just first of all, thank you for having me. Shout out to everybody who's out there grinding, right? It ain't easy, man. It's tough to sit there and be competitive and afford this sport. And if you really love it, right, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. So get out there, keep grinding, support each other, support these channels, tune into the coaches show. You know, get in the stands, man. Get to these events. Bring friends to these events. Buy their tickets into the stands. Do whatever you can. Right. So let's get out there and do it, man.
Absolutely. All right. So that does it. Mike, thank you for your time. And everybody online, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow Mike at ZenWap73 on Instagram and also follow The Coaches Show at thecoachesshow.live. So, what other guests would you all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button. The show goes live weekly here on youtube.com/at inthepitspaintballpodcast. And recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. I will give a shout out to my partner and sponsor tier subscribers on Patreon, FU Athletics, Get That Shot, Paintball Kumite, Compete, Bem Raps, Skull Monkeys Paintball, Hydra, XTPL Events, YI Paintball, Mariachi Aguilas de Oro, Pod Runners Union, and 71 Designs. So we will see you all next week for episode 83, where we're going to be joined by Josh Lenhart. He's the man behind the camera for Yosh Designs, and recently he announced that he was the new content creator for GI Sports and Core Outdoors. So we're going to get Josh on, get to hear his story. So we will see you all then. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.